Hi, I'm Paul from PRwilsonmedia, your social media personal trainer. And today I'm talking about very much my personal story of how I got started in social media. A wonderful opportunity that came about from taking a local, successful community event, sharing it through the power of social media all the way around the world. You can tell there's a swimming theme, so let's dive straight in to slide number 1. Connecting communities. Bringing people who share a common interest together, regardless of where they're physically located. That really is the power of social media. When people look at social media fundraising, certainly in the early days, it's often seen as, well, just more people asking for donations, you're just giving links and all of those things. Really the digital equivalent of shaking a bucket. We need to move beyond that, and what I'll be talking about today is the idea of collective participation, sharing a story, being part of something bigger than yourselves. Lots of small contributions adding up to a really big difference. So, if you're going to dream, you need to dream big. Now you may be asking yourself, why am I dancing around like a school kid? That's a London Olympic Stadium. And that is a Guinness World Record in my hands. Well, it's down to the guy on my right and his inspirational idea. And then it's down to the power of social media to make it happen. We'll talk more in the next few minutes. So the presentation is in 3 main parts. Number 1, that story of how we took the local popular Grantham swim event, annual event, and turned it into a global phenomenon. Then the lessons, as I said, we've learned about what really makes an impact. How do you go about, how are the best ways to use the social media tools that are there to influence and reach the people you need to reach. Not just about asking to click on this link and sign up to this, but to feel that you're part of something all the time. And in the final part, we look at helpful resources. There are a number of publications, my YouTube channel full of videos that are step-by-step, easy to use guides like this one to really get you started in the right direction on social. So, we'll begin with another picture of someone in swimming trunks, and that's me at the local Grantham pool around about 2010, late 2010. Now, it's not Baywatch material, I grant you, but I was actually there. We'd moved down to the area. My son started swimming lessons on a Saturday morning. Now, for me, it was a tricky time because I was very much a weekend dad at that time. I was working away on IT projects as an IT architect. I wanted to get much more of a work-life balance, find a way to get involved in the local community. And you can't quite see it in the background there, but there are some banners on the wall talking about the Rotary Grantham Swim Marathon, which caught my eye. So, being an IT guy, I looked up the club on the internet. I actually searched for various clubs, Rotary, Lions, Roundtable. Didn't really know the difference between them all. But I was certainly struck when I read about what the swim marathon involved. Essentially, this is the biggest local area fundraiser, has been for the last 20 plus years. It involves over 1,500 people swimming and being sponsored to swim over 3 whole days. The more than 60% of the people who take part are under the age of 16. All of the local schools, like this one in the picture, take part, and it raises an incredible amount every year in the region of £40,000, all of which is then donated to local charities and causes, 50 or so. Now, looking at the club in Grantham, it met on a Monday lunchtime, so as I worked from home on a Monday, that was doable for me. So I took the plunge and I joined January 2011 and was straight into my first swim marathon experience in February. And it was just incredibly spirited community event. I was so struck by the whole atmosphere of the thing. Now, what I also didn't realise by joining Rotary, alongside these local projects, it really is a global family. There's actually a membership of something like 1.2 million people spread across 200 countries. And what I didn't appreciate is that by joining a club in the UK or anywhere, you're welcome to visit any club anywhere in the world. In the picture you can see a flag ceremony that was at the Rotary International Convention that I was lucky enough to go to in 2013 in Lisbon. Now, the flag ceremony would rival the Olympics, with all those flags being reeled out. But at that time, 2011, I was still getting to know our local club members. So the last thing I was thinking about was global contacts. But little did I know the adventure that was about to dawn. Now, the swim marathon chair, who we saw earlier, and he's pictured here with me, Roger Graves, had had his eureka moment. He suddenly had a vision of London Olympics 2012, the local Grantham Swim Marathon. Wouldn't it be nice to share that with all the clubs we could reach around the world? We'd need an incentive. Now, he did some research and he looked up that there was a Guinness World Record that had been recorded for the most people swimming in the same hour. Part of a national swimathon that had taken place some years ago. The number was 2,533. Being an adventurous sort, he decided that that's entirely doable. Look, there's 30,000 clubs around the world. So, the other part of the equation was, what would we raise the money for? Now, Rotary has had a huge focus since 1985, being involved in the campaign, the global health campaign, to eradicate the devastating crippling disease of polio, which mainly affects children under the age of 5. And okay, in the Western world, the vaccines have been available and everybody's comfortably clear of polio these days. But back in 1985, there were still 350,000 cases around the world. Now, the wonderful news is, with all the efforts that have gone on, the number are now down into the tens, 20s, less than 100, and it's still prevalent in only 3 countries. But the campaign goes on, and it was a great way to galvanise support, because all Rotary clubs are signed up to support the End Polio Now initiative. Okay, however, those 2 ingredients, Guinness World Record, the fundraiser, but how to get the message out there? Yes, we had some personal contacts, people within our club who'd travelled to other clubs around the world, but really, could you really email these people and get them excited about an event? So, being a new member and keen to get involved but still working away all of the time, I thought that I could try on Facebook. I had a little bit of knowledge. It was something that I could do in my spare time, and it would give me a way to get to know other Rotary people around the globe. So, spreading the word. And what was great was that our club webmaster, the same person who'd put such a friendly welcoming message on the internet page, Irvin Metcalf, the secretary of the club, he had created this website. And basically, as you can see, it had all the details of how you could sign up. There was places to register, but the problem was there weren't many inquiries actually coming in. It was a case of, how do we make people aware that this event is there and it would be happening? So this was April. The date was set for the nearest to the Rotary anniversary, so the 105th anniversary of Rotary Day, the 25th of February 2012. So 10 months to go. Time to create my first Facebook page. Now, I learned, I think I attended a webinar from Rotary to show you how to set a page up. So I did that. I created the page and started to put a couple of posts on there. wondering what was happening. So I decided I needed to find other Rotary clubs. So I did a search for Rotary Club of and found every page I could, and then hit like, really trying to reach out everywhere. And even when people had liked the page, that was as if they'd signed up to the event to me. You know, it was really a case of try and reach everybody. But gradually, although it started slowly, we started to get some more enthusiastic responses from people in Australia and in South Africa. We still had a lot of barriers to overcome though. You know, the time difference. This is a Guinness World Record at 12 p.m. noon in Grantham. Well, that would mean 1 a.m. the next morning in New Zealand, 4 a.m. in the west coast of America. And of course there's language difficulties. To try to reach all the Spanish Latin American clubs was always going to be a struggle. So we had to keep trying different techniques, trying lots of things. One of the best things we came up with was the idea of not just having everyone on a entry list on the website, but creating, using a free Google Map service, creating a pin on the map for everybody who'd entered. This really was like a game changer, you know, something that people could zoom into, interact, see where they were on the map, and encourage each other because they could see that other people in their area were taking part. Now, here's the pin that we put on there, so we're entry number 1 on the map. But there was still a lot of work in terms of the promotion of this event. We had the fortune of being visited in our area, in our Rotary district, in August 2011 by the Rotary Great Britain and Ireland President for the year, Ray Berman. Now, we were fortunate that he was the first president at the time to embrace Facebook, so he actually had a Facebook presence. And he took back the idea, went back to the team, the Great Britain and Ireland headquarters, and asked them to promote on the website. So they started to share articles. Another opportunity that came along was in the November period. We decided to apply, based on the local swim marathon after all these years, to see if we could get any recognition from the National Swimming Association. We were very fortunate. We won a special award for fundraising and were invited along to an event up at Ponds Forge in Sheffield, and there were so many stars of swimming there to swim during the afternoon and the special award ceremony. So we got to know people from the Olympic water polo team, Paralympic and Olympic swimmers, like Fran Williamson that's mentioned here. And each stage that we got on, we were more and more momentum was building. There were stars of swimming that were lined up to take part around the place. As you can see, around January, February time, we really started to swell the numbers. And here's a look at the map. This is actually, to be honest, this is how the map is now, some years on. But these were pretty much the areas where everybody was swimming. So you can see we've covered all the continents there. And following the clock around the world, we were literally having pretty much a swim every hour during the actual event. Now, as well as being a game changer in terms of the event, this was really a critical moment for my own career, because you can imagine if you're trying to process and coordinate 100 plus swim marathons all at the same time. Yes, we can guide people, but these were new events to people, so there was a lot of email communication as well. So I reached the decision in January 2012 to take a break from my career and to just focus entirely on this, to see how this would develop. And on the day, it really was a global pool party. We had the fortune of over 100 clubs in over 20 countries taking part. For us locally, we managed to get BBC TV coverage, and we had to ask all the clubs around the world to take pictures and publicise in the local newspapers, and they had to provide evidence of that. So we got all of this information through. Moldova was a classic example. Myself and Roger Graves video clip was actually played on Moldovan breakfast TV. Now, what was great was that the news story wasn't just that the Rotary Club in Moldova was taking part in a world record. It was that Moldova was involved in a world record, the actual country. Now, you think about that hour where people are swimming. Here's a contrast. It was -10 and snowdrifts in Canada in the morning. It was 2:30 in the afternoon in Egypt, and it was 45 degrees. Now, we'll just quickly whiz around the pictures here. You can see a little boy in Grantham, Alf and Roger. But here, these two chaps, Moin Junaidi, the younger chap, and Raghavendra Anvakar. Both of these polio survivors, both of them national Paralympic swimmers in India, a country only then very recently declared polio free. Unfortunately, both of these lads had suffered with polio when they were very young. Moin is absolutely extraordinary. He had brittle bones disease, complications with polio, which meant that he'd had over 200 fractures in his young life. But even though he'd had fractures just before taking part, he was so determined to compete and complete his 100 metres that he did swim on the day. And that's one of the most moving things I've ever seen. We had former Olympic swimmer from Pakistan organised an event there. There's Australia where the lifesavers and all these extra events. I tell you, one that was extraordinary was that we managed to get in touch with some open water swimmers, and in the US, as I said, 4 a.m. Well, they didn't just do it the easy way. They actually swam at 4 a.m. in the Pacific Ocean. Now, Guinness were very stringent with the record. You had to measure 100 metres. How did they do that? They did it using glow sticks to measure the course. Had to be fully verified and signed off. But we have it on record that 89 swimmers and a dog took part. Another 4 a.m. swimming group there in Vancouver, USA. South Africa, there's Noeline Jorgensen, a very strong supporter, spread the event much wider within that region. In Mexico, and Bertha Marin did a marvellous job of organising an event, and our friends in Tenerife actually became a twin or an informal twinning arrangement with our club as a result of being part of this. So what were the achievements? Well, it started to come in very much like an election result on the day. We had that 2,533 target. Within a few hours we were just sneaking past 2,500. But it was only 3 months later when we finally got the official numbers, and it was a remarkable 4,546 people recorded on the paperwork. And we got to stand there at the Olympic Stadium and hold up that certificate. But most importantly of all, over $100,000 from that 1 hour's event was raised for End Polio Now. All of it collected locally, but reported centrally so that everyone was aware of what was happening, but the normal local channels we used for the contributions that worked really well. So you can imagine the elation and all the things that came along with it. What do? You just keep swimming, you keep going, you organise more events, and as you saw on that map, there's been over 400 plus swimming events that have continued into the current era. So 2015 February was the last main event. We've got our 5th anniversary coming up next year. Now, you can imagine how long it took. 3 months to process the paperwork for the world record. We couldn't just keep doing a world record. You can't expect people to swim at odd hours of the day every year. So what we did in the following years was make it a 24-hour swim or a 40 and swim at any time during that day. So we got more sign-ups, more countries involved, more people taking part. Here's just a few of the pictures from it. This is our own swimming pool in Grantham. That is my little boy. And that symbol he's making there is the this close. We're 99.9% polio free in the world. And that's a real passionate driver for all the Rotarians. Now this little boy, Peter, is 5 years old, and he joined in 2013. He wasn't there for in the dark swim, but the 2013 event, he was able to swim with all the other ocean swimmers in his little wetsuit there. It's a fantastic effort from him. And also, this dog, the most famous dog in world record history, the only dog to take part in a world record, Branson, the Wonder Dog, who actually in November 2013 saved the lives of 3 people out swimming. Now, that's quite an extraordinary participant to have in the entries. Hopefully he's had his lunch. Now, this lady, absolutely extraordinary, Thelma, 82 years old. She didn't just swim 100 metres, she swam 5 kilometres, 82 years old. Australia, every video we saw of Australian events was like a massive pool party, barbecue, and every shot. This is an example at PRwilsonmedia, where they all got into the water and all did the swim marathon pose. And this is Muin. As you can see, that's how he swims. He swims on his back. But what an ambassador, holding up the banners as he's swimming along. Just absolutely remarkable resilience and motivation, really. And here's another example of the fun of the event. There's our banner in the background, and we saw this at so many events around the world, in Mexico and in China and all these different places. That's the enthusiasm that it engenders. So, extraordinary thing, our little club in Grantham really making history, being the first club to create a global social media led fundraising event that took over so many Rotary clubs and got them involved. But at this point it was no longer just our effort. It was an international team effort. All the people that were connected on social media were helping each other. There's plenty of potential to develop new events. Now, the lady here pictured, Suzanne Ray from Australia, came up with so many contacts for the global swim you wouldn't believe. I mean, in South Africa, in Australia, in Pakistan and India, in Ireland, in the US. She herself was a polio survivor. At the time she was in Birmingham Children's Hospital at the age of 4 years old in the UK. And she's so driven. She's like a Facebook iPad warrior. She really, really had an influence. And she said, well, a lot of people can't actually swim. It's difficult if you haven't got a pool or something like that. Can we organise something else with this global network? And of course, what Rotary clubs can do well is eat meals and arrange events. So the world's greatest meal to end polio, herself and Mukesh Malhotra, a regional Rotarian in the UK, had an extraordinary vision of how much further the End Polio Now campaign could go. They started this in December 2013, and you can see there the Statue of Liberty reference. Was taking this baton, if you like, on tour around the different countries. I mean, she literally has been to visit. She's been to visit the swim marathon places in India and all sorts of things. But she is touring around the world, and this is the difference that it's made in terms of the overall map. So you've got all the knives and forks to represent the global world's greatest meal events that have been added to the equation. So sit back and wonder at that little idea that started from Roger's imagination and what's gone about since. Almost hard to take in, but here are the numbers to focus on. It's a great picture from South Africa of two of the girls that took part, but this is the grand total of the number of clubs that have taken part. There are 33,000 in the world. Over 1,600 have been involved in events for the meal or for the swim. How many actual people in the local communities? The latest figures we have is over 43,000 people have been taking part. So I don't have to be Rotarians, they're friends of Rotarians, just ordinary members of the public, intrigued, wanted to take part, wanted to make a difference. And we're 54 countries and 6 continents around the world. and the map just keeps on growing. But drum roll for this, $100,000 was raised in the first event, but guess what the total is now? Extraordinary $3.8 million has been raised for the End Polio Now campaign. And this purple text that you've got here is symbolic of the purple drops. The purple drops that are used to immunise children against polio. 2 drops is all it takes to protect a child. And so at 60 cents for a vaccine, that means 6.2 million children have been immunised against polio because of these events. Just like this child here and this picture from Rotary International. Extraordinary. So I'm pretty sure you know why I'm convinced about the power of social media. Well, I changed my entire career on the back of this. Now I work with SMEs and non-profits to really help them take this forward. And what I want to share with you now are 5 key lessons from the Rotary Global Swim Marathon experience that have really been useful to me all the way through in the training that I provide. Because this is the key. It's about how you now go and share your story, how you can do that within social media. Now you might be thinking, well, it's all very well for a big scale fundraiser like this, but what about local community events? But I can tell you that I've used these same principles during my time at Rotary Grantham to organise local events, coordinate supporters, get the media involved, all these things. So these are the 5 lessons, and number 1 is very pertinent. It's using the existing networks out there. What I mean is, don't need to go out there and build from scratch everything. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are lots of people who are your supporters, they're local media outlets that are already established, they have audiences on there, and you can just ask them if they would share information, while you're building up your following, while you're getting the event going. There are so many sites that would list your events for free, for example. Now, what I'm not saying is, to go and find any celebrity you can see out there who seems to have a big audience and try to message them every 5 minutes and pester away. That just doesn't work. But do your research. Every social media platform has search tools. Advanced search is where you can find and zoom in on potential sponsors, business partners, even event ambassadors. Don't try and hit everybody. You generate the interest, and then who comes back with the interest, follow up with them. It's not about trying to hit everybody. As I did with that Rotary Facebook page initially, that didn't work so well. I spent a lot of time hitting, blocks and not getting anywhere. And on that subject, don't try to be everywhere. There's no point in setting up a profile on every social media account there is. There's so many out there. Focus on 1 or 2, and particularly where your supporters will most likely be. Twitter and Facebook, where there's a much bigger momentum and base of users. And then just think about getting a consistent message and brand set up. Build up gradually and make sure that you connect everything together. So connect through to your website and back to your social media. Make sure it's all properly joined up and you're really familiar with how each platform works. I did it initially with Facebook. I eventually moved on to Twitter when I saw the benefits of using it over time. But don't just try and do everything at once. And on that theme of Twitter and going on to it, one of the things that I found amazing was that the lady in the picture here, Fran Williamson, now she's a 6-time world champion, Paralympic swimmer, 5 times Olympic medalist, Paralympic medalist, and she started to follow us on Twitter, So I thought I'd take the opportunity. I just sent a quick 140 character tweet, as you do. Would you mind being involved? Would you like to be involved in some way? You'd be an ambassador for an event. And she said, yes, I'd love to. Let's have a chat. Spoke with her now husband, who was her agent at the time. And we said, yeah, could you come along? And she supported, you know, 3 years running. She came along to our local Grantham events and was a real wow factor for the crowd, you know. As I mentioned, the Swimtastic Awards, where we had all the other stars of the swimming. You know, for chances like that, you've got to grab them. Every bump in the road shouldn't be enough the time to give up. You just keep going. If there's a chance and some opportunity arises that you just didn't expect, and grab it with both hands. The fourth point is find people who champion your, are so passionate about your event. They will make all the difference. Now, when you think of the swim marathon and all of those, there was 5,000 plus people who actually swam that first year. Only about 100 people were the contacts for me. A lot of people I'd never even spoken to, still haven't today in person, but they were so passionate, so able to take on the baton and actually organise the event locally. So it just made it easy to coordinate and, you know, make sure that the messages were going out there. So essentially we could just produce the basic materials and then the champions would do the rest. You know, they are the people who would get the numbers along to the events, to organise all these extra things that happen during the various happenings that we could all wonder at and share afterwards. But those champions are all important. Suzanne Ray, the classic example of the power of the champion, how much she's done, not just in taking this event, but then taking it forward with the greatest meal. And this will mean that your event goes further than you can even imagine. I mean, there's an example. We managed to find somebody in China, of all places, in Shanghai. They swam in an expats club or group. And there was a chap visiting from Sweden at the time. And a year later, he's taken that event and he's gone back to Sweden. And he's now set up for the last 2 years running in Sweden an event. So remember the things that are going to drive those people forward. The feeling of being part of the team. Shared event, shared goal, shared fun, shared reward. We actually came up with awards for the participants in 2013, which I handed out at the Lisbon event for the most people in an area swimming, the most people at a single event. All of these things, just little tiny awards, a symbolic award from our club, but it made such a difference to people. And to put all of this together into some sort of strategy, some sort of action plan, I like to use this 3-step model that has really worked for all the social media that I deliver on and advise my clients on. 3 stages essentially, each equally important. You've got the prepare stage, you've got the build stage, and then the engage stage. Now, breaking those down, prepare is all about getting your profile complete, getting the fundamentals in place, make sure the account settings are right, you've got quality photos, clear description, and links to everything else. Then you can move on to build, and now you can't just put content out there as the marketers would love you to do. You know, content is king, great, put it out there. But if you don't actually know who your target audience is and how to find them, then you may pick up all sorts of random audience members, but you're not going to get a quality audience. So you need to be proactive about this. Go and find people, use search tools, find people with a common interest, and really make connections before you get to the final stage, which is engage. It's all about variety, using a mixture of different messages, really sharing your story, joining in with conversations though, sharing the content of other people, contributing to the community. Follow those 3 steps in every project that you do, however the time frame is, however whatever's required. Just be consistent. Make sure that you're not trying to engage with people before you've even got a profile there, that you're not talking to yourself because you just haven't got the audience. Take each step as it. So those are the 5 key steps that I would suggest. There's plenty of other advice that I can give, and brings me nicely onto the final section, which is the helpful resources. So you should have a clear idea of what you can achieve and how you can go about it, but what are the tools that you can use. One of them that I would highly recommend immediately is storify.com. As the name would suggest, it's all about sharing your online story. But the way it works is quite unique. It's not like just writing a blog article. It combines the social media you're already talking out there, so the tweets that you're sending and other people's tweets, and the videos and the Facebook, anything part of any event that you take part in, you can combine them into a Storify story. It's entirely free. You can add the headers, the detail, you can put them in draft and then eventually update them. There's some examples here, the global swim story there. There's you get the picture on the front page. It can be presented in so many different ways. I really recommend registering an account there and playing around with Storify, because it can really enhance and capture what's going on and really enthuse people further. Second thing is, we were fortunate again with the story and the legacy of the swim marathon to be invited to write in a publication or to submit our story to a publication sponsored by Just Giving in the UK, by Social Media Misfits, titled Friends with Money. So stories and basically ideas around fundraising on social media. So it's packed full of really useful tips. I've got the actual book available, the link to the book available, which I'll put into the YouTube video notes. And here's the article that was featured on ourselves, and there's also the likes of Cancer Research UK, Cystic Fibrosis Ireland, and the Child Foundation. So some amazing stories, and I'm sure you'll find it a very useful resource. And finally, over on YouTube, there are of course many videos around fundraising for non-profits and lots of other useful resources. These are I've created for the last 3 years videos like this one, videos that talk you through step by step how to use each of the social media platforms in turn, videos that talk about specific relevant stuff to Rotary clubs. Here, for example, I've got an entire playlist of Rotary video resources, but they're also useful to any non-profit organisation who are just looking to raise the profile, get the events out there, and it'll give you some great ideas. There's our friend with the swimming pool again. And that brings us to the end of the talk, and basically let's recap on the 3 key messages from today. So firstly, however big the world is, it really is a global village. The same people who share an interest that you do, bring them together in any way possible, get them to help each other, and the strength in numbers is absolutely unimaginably powerful. It's such a positive force for good. I've experienced it, and I want you to as well. Those 5 key lessons I've gone through, so we're talking about making sure you use what's already out there. Don't reinvent the wheel. Use the existing network. Focus on 1 or 2 platforms at a time. Don't go everywhere on social and get nowhere. Next, you need to take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way. Be flexible, be adaptable. It's not just going to be a straightforward process. See what works, try things out, learn and adapt. Make sure you get champions and you give them your priority. Those are the people that will really take your events to the next level. They will support and work with you. It can really make a difference to spend time. Don't try and scattergun out to everybody, and you're not going to get that enthusiasm and support. You need to work on the people who can really drive it forward. And finally, use that model. 3 steps: prepare, build, and engage. I've shown you some of the resources in terms of support and guidance. I'll share with you now my contact details. Obviously, I'm fairly active on social media, so Twitter is my main channel. But you can contact me over the website, email, anytime. I am always looking to try and make a difference in any way that I can. It's been a wonderful change of career for me. I'm so delighted and proud to have been able to be involved with such a family like the Rotary Experience, and my working life gives me so much more job satisfaction. And so I look forward to hearing more from you, and thank you very much for listening and watching this. And my name's Paul from PR Wilson Media, and I'm your social media personal trainer.